Dude, but I get straight to it. Today we are reacting to the young nigga mindset is ruining society. I get straight into the video. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but I kind of feel like there's been a lot of stuff going on, and this YN epidemic is going a little bit too far.
Spaces of TikTok and social media, I'm sure a lot of people have heard the term YN. Not to be confused.
Oh yeah, before we get the video started, I see y'all see my hair growing. I've been MIA for a little minute, but my hair has been growing. And you know, everything been going good with me. I can't complain. But like I said, we better get straight to the video.
With Young Ninja. YN stands for Young Nigga, which is a slang popularized by rap culture. The term is supposed to represent young black men, mostly teens, and is heavily associated with the image of a black face, often in connection with erratic behavior, which 99% of the time involves hurting people, whether that be stealing, robbing, or just being belligerent. However, this term is not defined by skin color. It's more a mindset that the new generation of young people are taking on. We're talking about children as young as...
Yeah, don't get it confused. YN is not only black people. Classifying anybody as a YN nowadays.
10 being influenced by the behaviors that come with this term, and they're mainly being influenced by it through different forms of media, social media being the main one, but we also have music, specifically rappers, promoting this way of showing up in the world. A lot of the violent behavior from...
we're gonna get into it probably later about the rappers. I don't really know, but if not, I'm gonna bring it up
about why the YN mindset is slowly ruining society. Rapper King Von, who died back in 2020, might be the poster boy for this conversation.
Now, King Von is the poster boy for YNs, and it's honestly crazy, but he is the face of YNs.
Because Von was not only the physical representation of what the YN term is associated with, which is a black face, but King Von was also big on being a menace to society. That's what Von not only spoke about in his music, but he took pride in being the way he was. And then he got himself into...
And it's crazy because, like, before King Von came out, it's like everybody was talking, you know, crazy here and there, but it really wasn't too many people like acting out a character. When his music came out, I swear his music is demonic. Turned some of these people into demons.
An altercation in November 2020 and got himself killed. Now Von is just one example out of many, but he was a famous rapper, so he managed to at the very least reap the rewards from operating this way. Through the means of making a bunch of money from his music, he gained a lot of notoriety, fame, and recognition during his short-lived career. And although Von isn't here anymore, his music continues to influence kids all over the world in a negative way.
I have to finish this paper. I'm swamped. No one told me college would be so...
Appreciate the ad. I'm skipping that though.
What you gonna do though, like, if you get caught?
I ain't snitched. I went to juvie. I actually went to juvie because I teacher with scissors. And you can ask Larry. I chased my teacher with scissors.
And bro think like him chasing his teacher with scissors is the same thing as going to jail. Like he asked him, what do you plan on doing if you get caught? And he didn't say nothing about nothing.
Yeah?
I chased my teacher with scissors and I stabbed her and then said, oh, you're going to juvie for 3 months.
Hey, Kings, you gotta chill though, but that's not cool.
Huh?
It's not cool to be bad.
It is cool. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm just trying to be like my idol.
Who your idol?
King Von.
Bro said, it is cool. I'm just trying to be like my idol, King Von.
What the?
Now that clip that I just played you, I thought was some kind of like skit when I, first came across it, but it's actually real. Here we have a young black boy around the age of 10 or 12 being asked about riding around with grown men on a robbery spree. He's bragging about having been to juvie, how he hurt his teacher, and that King Von influenced him to be this way. And by the way, the title of this YouTube short, which is over 5 million views, is Crazy YN Chased His Teachers with Scissors. Now the question I had when I seen this video was, why is this adult male in the car making these suggestions to this kid? That's a whole nother issue, right? But this is something we don't talk about often enough. It's not just thousands, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of young people, might be in the millions at this point, adopting a similar way of thinking, being, and moving. And sadly, most of them are young black teens. But then again, like we stated, it's not a race thing, but more of a cultural thing. We're gonna dive into that later. And for the more mature crowd watching this video, right, who may not be on social media or even have, let's say, young nephews.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a cultural thing. Like, yeah, it started with black people, but now you see white people doing it. You seeing Asians doing it. You seeing Indian people walk around doing it. everybody's doing it, so it's not just a one race thing. Everybody think it's cool to want to be like King Von.
whose nieces or children growing up in this, new age of social media. A lot of you guys might actually be confused and completely in the dark about this YN mindset that I'm talking about. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing about this. If that's the case and you enjoy this conversation so far, drop a like on this video, right? For others, especially all the younger people who watch this channel, you guys know exactly
Bro
what I'm
ran
talking
off
about.
with the
And then we have,
cookies and
people like
failed.
myself, kind of in the middle, where I'm connected to it in a lot of ways and I see what's happening, but obviously I'm old enough to have enough sense to know how dysfunctional it is for society in general. First, we got to get clear about one thing, which is the YN term is a term that propagates a negative stereotype of black boys. For most people who know about this term and what it means, when they think about it, what probably pops up in their mind visually is a young black.
I ain't gonna lie, this picture right here is what perfectly represents, like, if you go outside, this is how you see how all the kids dress. It's how they all look, and they think it's cool.
With a ski mask, maybe a company with a Glock 45, robbing people.
And then the craziest thing about it though, they be thinking they the most freshest people, got the new J's on, what he got an MK belt on, but still be walking. Like, go get a car.
And being a menace. And that's something I personally think is a problem, right? It shouldn't be like that, but obviously it is, and there's some reasons behind it, and we're going to get into that later on. Now, the term to me isn't actually the issue, as crazy as it sounds, because if it stopped at just being words, there wouldn't be anything to talk about. The biggest problem is the mindset behind it and the energy it carries. For anyone who's heard the term YN, you've also probably heard crash out. Crash out is more of a mainstream way of describing when someone completely loses control, acts off emotion, ego, or pain with no thought for the consequences that may follow. I think Duke Dennis, who's a popular streamer, he explained it perfectly.
Crashing out is making a decision in a split second that could throw your whole life away. That's what crashing out
Facts.
is. Crashing out is, I'm ready to die about it. I'm ready to go to jail about it right now. Whole time the situation is not even worth going to jail about or dying about.
And shout out to Duke Dennis.
And that'd be the thing though, like, somebody that stepped on your white Air Force Ones. Now you ready to crash out and do 50 years over $100 white pair of Air Force Ones.
For the very proper explanation. In other words, you lose all logic and reasoning and let your emotions guide you towards an action that completely messes up your whole life when it could have been avoided. And these two terms, YN and crashing out, they're very connected. One of them, crash out, describes a general way of behaving without taking the person into account. So crash out can be about just about anybody, right? It can be about someone who's 15 years old, or it can be about someone who's 85 years old. YN is, however, catered towards the younger generation. And like we stated, it's often associated with young black teens. Now the question is, what is considered YN behavior? Well, let's put it like this, right? Anything that's reckless, belligerent, and violent. So let me give a few examples, right? Smash and grabs are a prime example of this.
I wouldn't necessarily say that's YN behavior, but we're gonna see where he going with this one.
Back in 2020, specifically around the time of the 2020 riots, we saw a spike in a very specific type of crime, and it was called smash and grabs. Smash and grabs, for anyone who doesn't know, is a term that describes a type of crime where a bunch of people run into a store, most times being a designer clothing store or a place where they have expensive jewelry, computers, etc. They break the windows, they run inside, take a bunch of shit, and they just dip, right? A lot of this was happening in the major cities in the US like New York, Los Angeles, etc. I think a lot that was happening can be connected to the things that were going on politically during that time, yes, but I think the pandemic and COVID-19 was a turning point for sure. I don't know about you, but I noticed how humans became way more, disconnected from each other after 2020 overall, and the way we interacted with each other.
That right there, what he just said, like, people becoming like more disconnected, is true. Like, I remember when I was younger, like, I'm not even old though, but back in like 2016, 2015, 2018, everybody used to be outside kicking it, having a good time. Like now, and which actually is kind of crazy because it really surprised me. Like the other day when I was going to work, it was like 90 degrees. It actually surprised me when I was riding down the street and I seen kids like outside on bikes and like kicking it, because I haven't seen that in forever. So it kind of like brought back that part of me, like humanity got a little bit of hope. Like all these kids not inside on tablets and not being kids.
each other as humans, right? But also what people were willing to do to others as far as hurting their fellow human beings. So with that shift, I noticed, and maybe you noticed this as well, I noticed how a lot of crimes were becoming way more vicious. You started hearing more and more about old people getting beat up and robbed. Gang violence became way more intense in communities all over the world, and kids started getting caught in the middle of it more often. People started having less and less concern for each other, and individualism, I would say, is at an all-time high right now, especially after 2020. But around 2020, this thing called smash and grabs became a common occurrence. Some of y'all might have seen a lot of those videos of a bunch of teens running inside a store, let's say a clothing or electronic store, stealing a bunch of clothes, laptops, and iPhones. And sometimes they arrive in, big ass groups, right? All ski masked up, looking like Pooh Shiesty.
Sunday, a group of thieves stole from the Nike store in East LA. We are blurring their faces here because they appear to be juveniles. And last week, a flash mob robbery occurred at the Americana at Brand, one of developer Rick Caruso's properties. He says despite their sophisticated security systems and armed guards, it still happened.
And sometimes they arrive by themselves, like this man at this Apple store, and they, clean out the whole spot.
My thing is with these iPhones though, like when people steal these phones, aren't they all trackable? And can't they all just be locked? So I don't understand why they sell Apple devices and certain things like that. Like, don't get me wrong, if I was to steal some, I guess clothes and stuff, like, can't really track that, so that's understandable. But I'm not stealing iPhones that can be locked and tracked. Or maybe they know something I don't know.
Not only did he clean out the whole spot of all their iPhones, put all the phones in his boxers, but he did all that and literally walked past a police car. If that ain't talent, bravery, and confidence in one, I don't know what is. But all jokes aside, right? This is what people associate a YN with. And although the image that pops up in people's heads is a black male or teen rocking a Pooh Shiesty ski mask, let's focus on the behavior itself, because that's what we're talking about. The YN mindset is a way of behaving, operating, and seeing the world. You don't think the consequences of your actions will catch up to you. Like this clip of this white kid talking a bunch of trash to a police officer and getting manhandled.
Imagine being able to build anything
just
by thinking
about
it.
Add
Meet Base
word.
44.
Oh yeah, we're skipping that.
Take it off and you'll see. Well, what you laughing for? I'm writing your shit. Take it off.
And we're gonna cut it right there because YouTube is
And what's crazy is I think I seen that video. It didn't end well for him.
very strict these days, okay? Let's just say that the end result was the young man begging for mercy on the ground, okay? Now, rap music has been a huge proponent of pushing the normalization of the YN mindset, and this is something I've spoken about on here for years in different contexts. We've seen countless young rappers crashing out for absolutely no reason, whether it's home invasions turned deadly in the TK case, or killing one of the most famous drill rappers at the time, Pop Smoke, when you're only 15 years old. That's a concoction of crash out and YN behavior, and you often see memes about this kind of thing, but I've yet to see an actual real conversation about what's created this phenomenon and why it needs to be abolished. We're talking about young people in large amounts acting reckless, belligerent, hurting people in the process without any regard for how it's going to affect their lives and others. And it's also not that the older generation, let's say the 80s babies, weren't on demon time during the crack era, okay? Because they obviously were. Just ask your parents. It's just that we keep on seeing more recklessness and more innocent people getting caught in the middle of it, and a lot of this is being televised to an entire generation of young children through social media. And the number one commonality that I've observed in this type of behavior is structure or lack thereof. Often we see this type of behavior in society, either in your own backyard or in close proximity to you or the people you love. You'll notice how a lot of these young boys, right, specifically young boys, because young girls aren't out here like putting on ski masks and like robbing stores, right? Most times they're not. In 99% of the cases they're not, right? You'll notice how a lot of these young boys come from fatherless households, and 9 times out of 10 they were most likely raised by a single mother. A lot of times we also see another thing, which is they either come from an impoverished background.
Yeah, that's the one thing about my generation, like a lot of people, because I grew up like early 2000s, so a lot of people in that era like grew up with the single moms, and they had to do what they had to do, which we appreciate, but it's only so much you can do as a single mom that a father needs to have, and to show their son. So we appreciate it, but fathers were definitely needed, because that's why we at where we at right now, where a lot of these dudes just think this stuff is cool. It's not cool.
If not that, at the very least, we're talking about a working class background. And here's the thing, what happens when a father is absent in a lot of cases? Well, according to the studies, this has been very well documented.
And don't get me wrong, like it's people nowadays that's doing it even with both parents. I don't get why they do it though. Like, I don't know, like this stuff don't seem cool. It's not cool. Like struggling is not cool. Like, I wish I grew up in a 10-bedroom mansion with everything taken care of.
Say the following. Research shows when a child grows up in a father-absent home, he or she is 4 times more likely to live in poverty, more likely to suffer emotional and behavioral problems. Children of single mothers show higher levels of aggressive behavior than children born to married mothers. And number 4 is very major because it kind of goes hand in hand with this topic, and that is more likely to go to prison. 1 in 5 prison inmates had a father in prison. And then at number 5, which is very, very, very important for this topic, more likely to commit crime. Study of juvenile offenders indicate that family structure significantly predicts delinquency. Number 8, we have more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. And then at number 10, we have 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. Now, obviously, not every single teen who comes from this type of background ends up committing brazen crimes or acts belligerent or shows a lack of self-control in spaces occupied by others, right? And the question is, why is that? Well, there's a couple angles to this. First of all, a big one that's not emphasized is personality. You can come from the worst conditions and have every single obstacle against you known to mankind. If you're not naturally inclined to be this type of person, you're not going to put on a mask and start robbing old folks, right?
That's
and on
facts.
the other hand, you can come from a household of love, 2 loving parents. You know, your name could be Clarence, and if you find the idea of being a menace to society appealing, then that's the path you're going to go down.
That's basically what I just said. Like, it don't matter. There's no perfect scenario we could be at to just like not want to do it. You just gotta be the person to say that's just not for me.
Then we of course have a mix of this along with environmental influences, which we'll touch on later. Aside from that, another aspect of this is back in the day, there used to be this thing called a rite of passage, something you did that marks the transitional phase of your life into adulthood. And this rite of passage added a layer of accountability to them as people, and it set a precedent that said you're now responsible for your own life, so act accordingly. Nowadays, we don't have any of that. Culturally, things are less structured. I mean, this young new generation doesn't really even know how to follow authority. Just take a look at what's happening with teachers and their students now.
Disrespect from students. In the 3 years that I've been teaching, I've been cussed at countless times. I've been called fat. I've been called a B word.
A lot of the young people from this generation think that.
So the thing about this is I had, like, me and my girl, we had got into it. Not really, you know, just a little disagreement. And I was like, if I was a teacher in this generation and these kids is acting the way they act, I would have crashed out too on these kids. Not even gonna lie.
Following basic instructions.
Cause like I wouldn't, like, I was so scared of like them calling my mama. Like, I already know my mama. She like obviously something bigger and, you know, stuff like that. So then like, but just the fear that she instilled in me as a kid, just I would never have thought for the teacher to call my mama in the middle of school. Yeah. These kids now, they don't care.
Like sit down or put your phone down is a sign of disrespect. A lot of the youth who adopt this Hawaiian mindset actually come from loving households. They didn't have to worry about missing meals or going to sleep without a blanket, only, you know, showering with cold water, sleeping on the floor, eating rice and beans, you feel me? A lot of them have been spoiled to the point where consistency in their household or outside suddenly turns into a prison, which is why they're often looking for excitement in the outside world. And that excitement leads them down a road where they start acting out in ways that not only put themselves in danger, but the rest of us that want nothing to do with any of this. And a lot of the young boys who fall into this category, right, of kind of having this Hawaiian mindset, a lot of them just have no identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they want in life. They don't know where they're actually going. And it doesn't help that they don't have any real life positive and tangible influences around them as a symbol for what they can become. On top of that, as soon as they head over to Instagram, their algorithm is pushing all this low life behavior content in front of them, whether it's people acting out in public and fighting, or things like videos of people who look just like them, white, black, purple, not color specific, terrorizing innocent people by being belligerent, ruthless, and a menace to society. And that validates their way of living, and it plans to see that then normalizes this way of living in their mind. When you're spending more time with a screen that's made to program your mind in a negative way, than with real people? Is it really a surprise that so many of these young kids are turning out this way? I don't really think so. And speaking of the identity thing, because I think this is worth hitting on a little more. I think this is the core of the issue, actually. Notice how a lot of the, in this case, the YNs who fall in this category, right? They tend to roll in packs. Now, why is it that people who exude this, I'm a savage mindset don't have the confidence to walk in the streets by themselves? You're supposedly this tough guy who likes to prey on a weak, and you'll beat up anybody who tests you, and you love to cause ruckus in the streets, but you don't have enough cojones to go outside by yourself. Let me tell you why that is. It's because a lot of these young men don't have an identity.
It's always been like that, though,
because they don't have a sense of themselves. And the only time they can be themselves is when they're around a pack of 13 other YNs who think just like them. That's how they feel safe being them. They don't have any home training. They don't know what it means to conduct themselves in a public setting and be one with their environment. They're loud, they're aggressive, and they're repelling, honestly. So a lot of this stems from not knowing who they are, a lack of identity. And the natural response to that, rebellion, validated by the approval of the group. So their way of belonging is by being posted up with others who they feel have the same mission as them. The only oxymoron is the mission is obviously dysfunctional and it adds no value to society at all. And the thing is, there's a reason why a lot of these young men are so quick to crash out, catching felonies through stealing, robbing, and in some cases even taking a life. We've seen that in hip-hop, right? To them, catching a charge or crashing out, that's not a loss to them because they never felt like they even had a real place in society to begin with. If you're someone who, let's say you're in this demographic of people who could fall into this, the thing is kind of
I worked last night,
all crazy and crashing
still
out,
here for y'all though.
YN, right? It's seeing the other paths that are available for you to walk in. Let's say you have a hobby you're passionate about. Maybe you like to sing, rap, write music, paint, health and fitness. Maybe you want to be the next Kai Cenat. Actually, don't try to be the next anybody. Just be
yourself.
Or you're in training school, medical school, or you just graduated high school and you have plans to do something with your life. It's the options that are available for you that's gonna make you not want to throw your life away.
Let people inspire you, but be yourself.
And crashing out. The reality is there's a lot of young people these days who've given up. A lot of these are young men, sadly. And a lot of them, they lock themselves in the basement. They don't participate in life. They get hooked on drugs, alcohol, pornography. They play too much video games, whatever. They hate the world. They hate themselves. They hate women especially. And they're not willing to do anything to change their situation. And yes, there's something to be said about why a lot of those, young men are in those particular situations. But obviously, crashing out ain't really going to solve anything. That's what we're talking about here, right? And then what happens a lot of times in a situation like that is they get involved in the wrong crowd, and then a bunch of people with no identity come together and cause a bunch of chaos that we have to deal with in our communities. So it's on us to clean it up.
My thing is, if I'm not mistaken, these look like police officers, right? He fell. He's obviously the last one out. Why would they not just... why would y'all... You're 2 feet away from him. Why not grab him? Why let him run and then start chasing him?
Slips and hits her head and
am I missing something?
Dies. That's unnecessary.
I must be missing something.
The people in our communities have to deal with. Energetically and spiritually, there's something that happens to you as a human being when other humans around you are grieving. That energy gets transferred to the rest of the community and it lowers the frequency of the environment around you. I'm talking people walk around more anxious that it could happen to one of their loved ones or them. And I'm talking about, let's say, one of these YNs, doing something that leads to someone in a particular community dying, and then that kind of feeds into the community. That's what I'm talking about, right?
Love was nearly lost
until another ad. That's crazy. 3 ads in 1 video.
People start walking around tens, guarded, doubting that their fellow humans have some kind of agenda when all they're doing is being polite or helpful, and that becomes the new normal. That's how distrust in society among people is created. And not to make this about money, right? But it does cost the government when tragedies happen. And a few examples of that, well, number 1, emergency medical care for victims of violence. That is funded by the taxpayers, us. So it by default becomes a public burden. Number 2, the police actually has to investigate the crimes, which that's an expense. And something that's kind of connected to this, which is, the average cost, and that's number 3, the average cost of housing a juvenile in a detention center in the United States is over
Dang, the average cost of housing a juvenile is over $200,000.
$200,000 a year. Did you know that? I didn't really know that. That's
I didn't know that. That's a lot.
So when that 17-year-old young boy decides to catch a felony charge by popping somebody, right, or doing something crazy, that's the price we got to pay for what he did. And also, number 4, okay, let's not forget things like increasing cost of insurance in high crime neighborhoods. And number 5, and also this is a big...
Yeah, I'm tired of that because my insurance rates sky high.
Big one. businesses taking their companies elsewhere and leaving the areas where, you know, these, in this case, these YNs are terrorizing, right? And obviously it ain't just YNs, you know, doing all this crazy stuff. That's what we're focusing on in this video, obviously, okay? So you get it. And then something that's connected to number 5, and I'm sure some of y'all have heard about this, right? Which is, haven't y'all heard what's happening to so many, you know, like specifically like black communities in America? Whether it's Walmart, Target, or any other major chain that fuels the economy of said neighborhood, a lot of them are leaving these black neighborhoods. And they're leaving a lot of these neighborhoods because, you know, a lot of people are stealing, and they're losing so much money to the point where it's not even profitable for them to actually stay in these neighborhoods, right? And it's a shame that, you know, regular folks who aren't a part of all this craziness and all this chaos have to deal with this, and they don't have the funds to move, so they get affected, right? So it's really unfortunate how this is particularly affecting black neighborhoods all over America. A very small minority of our melanated brothers and sisters are, you know, they're just honestly fucking it up for so many people, man. Like, I don't know what other way to put it. And obviously, like, most people aren't on this. Like, it's a very
well, but to cut this video short, y'all, but like you say, the YN epidemic is ruining our society. If you know better, do better. And just want to let everybody know that YN stuff ain't really worth it. It's not worth going to jail over, and it's not worth losing your life over potentially. So I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video. Peace.